What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cover Band Confidential podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn some new tricks and to find a better way. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
And here in Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
How's it going, Dan?
Super good. How are you?
Doing all right. I've got this new venture that I've kicked off and have done a little bit of business and have a little more in the pipeline, and I'm winding down affairs at my current job.
Good.
And I'm trying to keep positive in the face of this kind of scary new realm.
That really is the crucial thing. It's bizarre to not have a job to go to for me. It's very strange. And fundamentally it all comes down to whether I can keep my head on straight about it. 'Cause it's really easy to make a couple of phone calls and then just sit and binge watch, done with The Office now. But various things.
We plowed through the IT crowd recently. That's a good one.
That's good. Oh, since we're talking about TV shows, there's a British TV show on Netflix called W1A, which is like Arrested Development meets Better Off Ted, but set in the BBC.
Okay. So
it's they've just hired this guy who was the head of the Olympic Committee in 2012 for London as the BBC's new head of values. And nobody quite knows what that means. And he doesn't know what that means. And it's placed just totally every character has sort of content-free verbal tics that there'll be a 5-minute scene of a meeting, and literally that's all anyone says is their thing that means nothing. And by the end of the meeting, nothing has happened. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've sat in that meeting. It's hilarious. More funny than that description makes it sound like.
All you had to say is Better Off Ted. That was like one of those really just underappreciated shows I thought was fantastic.
Seriously. Yeah. I pretty much always feel like I'm either in the middle of a Better Off Ted rewatch or it's time for Better Off Ted rewatch.
Yeah. Portia de Rossi was like just crushingly good in that show.
God, they all were. It was amazing.
Anywho. So you had a couple of things you wanted to talk about, and I just wanted to share something that happened in our local scene recently that I thought would provide an interesting bit of context to things. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Well, so last weekend we gigged twice. We played on Friday night at Sawmill 2, which is a place we've been at a bunch of times. And then Saturday night at a brand new venue that's just breaking in music for the first time called Second and Green in Winston-Salem. And an interesting thing happened at the Sawmill show. The last time we were there, we had some kind of mix problem. The vocals were muddy and unclear, and I just got a ton of feedback from the people about that. They loved us, but it was kind of a loved you but sort of thing. And so I went in this time like making sure my mix was beautiful, and it was. And the feedback I got was, "Hey, it's so much better than last time." So I guess that's good, but I'd like to not be the band that's better than last time, right? I'd like just to be reliable. So we're working on that. But I went into that gig. So that crowd is older. The bar's owned by two women in their 60s, and they're adorable and fantastic. And, but it's an older crowd, but very game. We throw shut up and dance at them and they party and, whatever. But one of the pieces of advice that didn't record when I talked to my friend Danny Skeel a few weeks ago we were talking about that venue and older crowds in general. He said that they take their whole show about 5 BPM slow.
Interesting.
In that venue. Because the first time we were there, we wore them out. We played our normal dance mix at its normal energy, and we wore them slap out, and they were done by about halfway through the second set. So this time we just laid it back a little bit. We didn't drop the energy any, but we did drop the tempo and found some new tastiness, some new groove can happen when you're not at, when you back off the tempo a little bit. And in terms of the playing and the feel, boy, it was a great show. It was a great show. Got good feedback, and they want us back on the regular. And so all really good there. The second night, the Saturday night, was at a brand new place that, have you ever played somewhere, Adam, that the clientele just completely changes during the night?
Like you start with one group and then you end with a totally different group?
Yeah, and in this case, we started with bikers. We pulled up to load in, and the parking lot was full of Harleys. And we do Born to Be Wild. I mean, we can play to bikers. They,
Sure.
Bikers are, as long as you hit Born to Be Wild once. They're pretty open to other things.
Yeah.
But you do have to hit Born to Be Wild once.
Yes.
And then by the time we shut it down, this was 7 to 11, this show. So both of our shows this weekend were very bedtime friendly. By the end of the night, it was all millennial hipsters.
That's a bit of a split.
20-year-old partiers. And so we just felt the night along. I mean, I'd made a set list that had no idea that was going to happen. And we just sort of felt our way through the evening, and it was really great. And one of the things we have added, we have always done, like put on this sort of staged rap battle thing in the middle of What I Got by Sublime.
Yep.
And a couple of shows ago, Justin had loaded up with Tony on his sampler a karaoke backing track for Gangsta's Paradise.
Nice. So
we're just doing our rap battles over the top of the rhythm section, thumping along. And he turns to Tony and says, "All right, man, go." And suddenly it's, that big opening of Gangsta's Paradise. And I literally had to sit down at a table and just hold my head in my hands. He defeated me so thoroughly.
That's awesome.
So since then, we've both put in additional clips. So at the show on Saturday, I did, on Friday night, I did Jump Around, House of Pain.
Yep.
And then I added for Saturday night, Low, Flo Rida.
Okay. The apple bottom jeans.
Apple bottom jeans, exactly. So, and by then the crowd was like young and diverse. And we killed them with this sort of doing pop rap tunes at each other, sort of breakdown medley thing in the middle. So, I just share that because it's such a departure from what a lot of bands are even willing to consider doing. But it really makes it has become a centerpiece of our show, and it's the thing that people come to see, and it's really fun. So it's a good getting outside the box kind of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm having a similar kind of conversation around that. The current job that I am in, I work for a church, and I have a lot of friends who have come to see our shows, and especially Fanny Pack Friday, they asked a lot, "Oh, I'd love to hear you do this song. And I'd love to hear you do this song." And I was like, well, there's kind of an expectation of, decorum that you wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't do certain songs for certain reasons. And when I put my notice in, one of the girls that works there walked up to me and she's like, "Does that mean that you'll do Baby Got Back Now?" I just thought that was an interesting way of saying I'm going to miss you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a couple of those. The other one that I was thinking about was Pony by Genuine, which is a song that I just absolutely love, but feels super just nasty trying to perform. But it is kind of vocally in my sweet spot. And I think it would be, if you could pull it off, it would be,
yeah,
you could peel the paint off the walls if you did it right.
Yeah. Yeah. The one I'm adding for this next week, just because I want to make everyone go, is Shake It Off.
Oh yeah, the T Swiftie song.
Yeah, yeah. Just because our audience is the girls, so
it's true. That is what we are going for.
Yeah.
So I had an experience. Actually, we were talking about you start off with one crowd and end up with another. Yeah. I had one of those. I ended up doing a pickup acoustic gig, and I started the evening with families and just people having dinner on a Saturday night at a Mexican restaurant, and I ended the night with nobody.
Oh, yeah.
They had me playing until 11 at in a pretty, suburban area. And literally I was playing a song and even the bartenders had left. And I was like, I guess I'm done. So that was a sobering reminder of,
especially the bartenders are gone. Literally sober.
Well, they were closing up. They knew what was going on. They had to they had to get all of their stuff wrapped up before they could head out the door. So
right.
It was just, I was literally halfway through a song and I just stopped playing. I was like, I think I'm done.
Doesn't look like there's much point going on. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the last performance I had. We've got a doubleheader weekend coming up the 14th and 15th, Fanny Pack Friday, and then a private event. Both of those with subs on bass and drums.
Nice.
I have my first sit down with them on Labor Day,
Good. Is it that killer bass sub you had before?
No, he was available for one of the dates, but not both. I had already made arrangements with two other guys, and they're local and aren't playing full time with anybody. So if they end up panning out, they'd be good guys to have. Just as a reminder, our drummer had spinal surgery. It actually was this week. Everything went well, and he's home, and he's very motivated. He'll more than likely be at those gigs. He just won't be able to play. Right. But yeah, they had picked a sub, and they've been trying to work him in, and apparently had to have a come to Jesus meeting with him. Like, hey, you gotta. This is serious stuff, and if you want to work, you got to show up, and you got to be prepared. He had apparently had a meeting with our drummer, to go over some stuff, and was not up to snuff, and so I let my guys handle it, and they did, and hopefully, we won't have to worry about it.
Very good. Delegation.
Yes, I'm not very good at that. I'm not good at that at all. So I let other people handle it.
Good job.
So
good job.
Good stuff. And you've got how many coming up this week? You have another 2 this week?
I'm playing on Saturday night at a place we played before, one of the regular places we are at, and then I'm playing with Viva la Muerte on Sunday afternoon at the Poorhouse in Raleigh, which I've never been to.
Gotcha.
But it's like a 2 to 5 show, and it'll be my first time in my role as guitarist. I've subbed with them on bass before, but this will be my first time playing guitar with them.
Ooh, speaking of that, I have picked up a couple of dates as a sub as well.
Nice.
I've mentioned my country band Convoy previously. That band has pretty much fizzled out. There's not really much going on there. Most of those guys have moved on to another project. It is a Leonard Skinner tribute, and they need a Gary Rossington for a couple of dates. So I'm going to strap back in to those bell bottoms, and I've got to learn those tunes.
All right, good.
So I've got another week or so to start shedding on those. I'm still waiting. This is one of those things where you kind of need to know what you're supposed to play, because there's 3 guitar players. You don't want to step on people's toes. Right. So I'm still waiting to get some material to make sure that I'm focusing.
Was the the example of how to handle that, because they really, between them and the Eagles, they really handled I see a lot of bands sometimes having even 2 guitarists just squashing each other, just playing the same, banging the same chords, the same bar chords or whatever. Rather than finding voicings that contribute in different ways and, give the guitar a great big full sounds, like a guitar section that you got to organize and arrange,
Yeah, that's one of those things that I've always, have been cognizant of, because, when I joined an original group, and, you've got to pick those parts out. So, the only time that the guitar players would play in unison is when there was something going on that was really, needed attention.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're off in your own world. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Good stuff. So, I've got to channel my inner hillbilly redneck guitar player.
Yep. Good.
It's not as easy as doing Keith Richards, but, Gary wasn't the shredder in the band, so I should be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, speaking of gigs and that kind of thing, I wanted to talk about something that happened in the Atlanta area this past week that I think is just interesting, and a great just indicator of what is possible for what it is that we do. We think as cover musicians that we have a certain place to play and a certain niche that we fill, and that it typically revolves around, smaller capacity venues and certain kinds of events and bars and clubs and that kind of thing. Last week, a band that I used to play with called Yacht Rock Review play this event every year. They call it the Yacht Rock Revival. And it's kind of morphed over the years. I think this might be I can't remember how many they've done at this point, but what they've been able to do is they've been able to garner relationships with the original artists who did these kinds of songs. So what that means is they were covering Robbie Dupree, and then Robbie Dupree found out about it and decided that, he would want to participate and do some shows with them. And then Elliot Lurie from Looking Glass kind of picked up, and they've gone through all different numbers.
Wow.
So this is, this is a standing event that they've done every year. And this year they played Chastain Amphitheater in the Metro Atlanta area, which they've done before. I went to the last one they did at Chastain. They sold it out. A cover band sold out.
Wow.
An amphitheater with a capacity of just under 7,000 people.
Jeez. Wow.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Especially, yacht rock is, I guess it has its fans. Obviously it has its fans, but it's like, for me, that's sort of, I want to listen to it for an evening, maybe at if there was a yacht rock band playing, I'd hang out.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to seek it out, I don't think. Maybe there are those who do. Presumably there are.
Well, yeah. At one point, Yacht Rock Review won an award from like a local magazine. It was the best band to get drunk with your dad.
All right.
And I think that was I think that's a good way to describe them.
Yeah,
and
totally.
they've got a very unique thing. It's a group of really talented guys doing spot on renditions of these songs. And it's tongue in cheek, and it's, but everybody's in on the joke.
Yeah.
Even the fact, the fact that the guys who did the actual, the original versions are in on it.
Right.
And that's actually there've been some articles around that not everybody's really hip to that idea. That it's kind of, schmaltzy and a bit of a lark. But it's just been, it's been amazing to see where they've come from, because when I was filling in for them, they were playing at this tiny club called Ten High in the basement of a bar called the Dark Horse in the Virginia Highlands in Atlanta. And that place doesn't have a huge capacity, but for them to start at a place that holds a couple hundred people to sell out a 7,000 seat amphitheater in, the matter of 6 or 7 years is pretty remarkable.
It is. That's great.
And so that's just perspective for you guys. I know that there are other bands out there that are swinging for the fences. Charlie Corton, who I know has been listening to us, has a group out of Florida that's doing some crazy like surround sound 70s psychedelic rock experiences.
Cool.
And I know that they just did their first major ticketed event that looked like it went really well. So if you've got ambition and you've got creativity, there are opportunities to just really crush things if you keep at it.
Sure. Yeah. Great.
But yeah, that whole,
to them. That's fantastic.
Yeah. That organization is just unbelievable. They basically hire these guys. They've got 401ks like it's a career. It's amazing. So
that's great.
That's all. Thought that was a neat story to share.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. Well, I have a couple of things. One of which I ran by you before we hit the record button, and the other which I forgot to. So I'll start with the one I forgot to.
Let's do it.
Does your
never?
Good. It shouldn't. I'm trying to come up with the right way to formulate this question because first of all, I'm curious if we got any feedback from my comments about libertarians last week.
No.
Okay, that's for the best. Very much for the best.
Yeah.
Does your band or any of your music projects have a political opinion or position?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
My social media presence really doesn't, for that matter.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. For sure, the Clanky Lincolns are deliberately and explicitly apolitical.
Yes.
My personal Facebook feed is not, but so it goes. I ask because there is a category of gig that you just have to think about if it's on brand for you. A friend of mine is organizing Get Out the Vote for a local candidate and is part of a much bigger sort of political movement group. Not going to trouble anyone with which candidate or even what party they're with. But the question was, could we come provide live music for it? And it's a group that's not shy about what side of the spectrum it's on, and certainly it's benefiting a particular candidate. And I had to say, I'm gonna have to, we have to have the Lincolns pass on that.
Yeah.
Because it's just not like, I don't want to, especially these days, taking any stand on that is such it's just a self-limiting, it's a career limiting move, I think.
Agreed.
And so what I did say, and then I found out where it is. It's in this tiny little tap room that seats probably 40.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a pretty good patio, but inside it's not big. And I've actually talked to them, and they're clear a band wouldn't work there. And I said, I would come do solo acoustic for that as, Dan Ray musician. I'm happy to take a political stance. It's fine. But under the brand of the Clinky Lincolns, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that. There are gigs for political events out there that, and listen, I think you should be clear that, our two organizations not having a political stance doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Correct.
Plenty of music groups and artists, and for sure in like the original music world, it's, your politics are part of your message.
Mm-hmm.
Where would we be without, Bob Dylan and, all of the artists that have moved the world around, and for that matter, Ted Nugent. But it's a choice that you want to make deliberately. Mm-hmm. The band I was in before the Clinky Lincolns, Disaster Recovery Band, was explicitly political. We played a March for Science, which it's a real shame that science is political, but
it really doesn't feel like it should be.
No, but that is the world we live in.
Like, is grammar political?
Exactly. Yeah. But nonetheless, it was the biggest show that we had played at that time. There were about 4,000 people in that plaza. And Viva La Muerte played there. It was where I met them. So big good things came out of that. But when we looked at the anniversary of that event, both of those bands were going to play again, and I declined because it's not right for the Clinky Lincolns. No,
I feel that. There's multiple schools of thought on that whole deal. There are certain bands, like I know for a fact there's a number of bands that are in DC who can't afford to have those kinds of opinions, because if you want to play private events and you live in DC, you're playing wherever.
Yep.
And I also have friends who are specifically political on a certain side that have played for now, for then presidential candidates that they didn't necessarily agree with, but were perfectly fine taking their money.
Sure.
So there's a couple ways of going about that. And it was also one of those things where, as a hired gun, you're not hanging your hat on that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of different ways of looking at it. For me, the organization that I work for always use this term that it is a bad idea to give up influence unnecessarily. So by taking a particular stand or addressing certain things on social media or having a certain voice, you're giving up influence with people.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach the widest group of people and obtain more business, you would be hard pressed to go another route, because you're going to end up alienating people. And as a business owner, that's the last thing you want to do.
Exactly.
Now, it doesn't mean that with your own finances, you don't support causes that you believe in.
Sure.
But
sure. Or even, your personal brand can be distinct from your band's brand.
Mm-hmm.
That's legit. That's fine. It's the kind of thing though, when I walk into place of business or a doctor's office or something, and there are TVs up that have,
that channel
programming on that is purporting to be news but isn't. On either side, right? I feel the same way if it's something that I would be leaning toward politically anyway. The position that is taken by the choice of channel is, it's just going to color some people's view of you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you are making a statement whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And feel free to make a statement if that's your choice. There are consequences to the statements we make.
Yeah. True dat.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it happened this week. And so I probably will be doing solo acoustic for that. That'll be fun.
Good.
The other thing that came up actually a couple weeks ago here in my neck of the woods, there is a series of restaurants, small local chain of 3 restaurants that are well known. If you live here, you know of them, and they do live music, and it's kind of a prominent venue. It's mostly it's prominent because the fact of there being 3 of them within an hour's drive gives them a lot of inventory, right?
Yeah.
People, I think there probably are people that go there for the music, but it's not. I think they're prominent mostly because of the number of dates they have.
Sure.
They have started a policy that if you're going to be playing at one of their places regularly, you may not play at some other places that are nearby. And so they're demanding exclusivity of nearby venues. So, and the, it's interesting that the hurdles they put you through. If you're going to play these places, the first place they put you on is Danville, Virginia, which is about an hour north of here. Mm-hmm. And then they put you in the place in High Point, which is a little town kind of halfway between Greensboro and Winston-Salem. And then they put you at the big show, the one in Greensboro.
Gotcha.
And each of those has nearby, restaurants that they consider competitors. And his justification for doing this is that he doesn't want bands that are overexposed.
Okay.
Right? So this came to my attention because, one of these days we'll redo the conversation with Danny Skeel, but this was part of this. He's been dealing with this. He wants to play that place financially. It makes sense for him to make the choice to take the exclusivity and play that place. Mm-hmm. And so he was looking to replace himself at some other places. And we were looking at taking one of those dates, but it turns out we're booked. But anyway, the point is, I don't know how I feel about a venue flexing its muscle and demanding booking exclusivity. I do get the complaint about bands being oversaturated, but I'm not quite sure this is cool. And I just wanted to bring it up. I just wanted to just talk it through with you. What do you think about that, Adam?
So there is a similar set of venues in our area that kind of have that approach. And I've played those venues before in certain groups. And the thing about that situation is that if you're going to take that kind of stand, you better be able to provide, the monetary compensation that, that right. a promise like that provides.
Right. Right.
And those venues definitely have, a built-in crowd. They are known in the area for that kind of music. And for certain bands, it does make sense to go that route. But I've also seen bands that have gotten kind of burned. They were like, you're too busy. This band can't play here anymore. Right. And then, they try and set up a relationship with another venue. And then there's friction, there's trouble, which I don't think is very cool. While I agree with the sentiment that bands should not overexpose themselves in the same market, it just seems like most venues can't afford to take those kinds of stands.
Yeah.
You know, if I had a venue say that to me, I would have no hesitation to go, well, then I need a minimum guarantee of X number of gigs over the next period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There have been times I've actually had a conversation with one venue that was about offering them kind of regional exclusive, like they'd be our downtown Winston venue, like our named official one. And, but I'd need to have them booked out for a year in advance, and I would need double pay.
Yeah.
They didn't end up taking that, but that's kind of where I would come to it. If somebody really wanted me to curtail my sales machine.
Yeah.
Right. I would just need to be compensated for that. And if they were willing to compensate me for that, God bless, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
As far as I know, these guys are not making any special deal. They're just making this demand.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem now. So for me, here's where I come into this conversation about this particular place personally. The dude who books for that is notorious for not being in communication, not returning emails. I have emailed him, our information, I don't know, 3-4 times over the last year and not heard a word from him. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like, well, God bless. He's leaving. He is forcing bands to leave gigs that I'm going to go pick up.
Yeah.
I've kind of said I now have basically no interest in playing those places, partially because I'm not going to drop dates that I have on the books at places, competitors. I mean, that was his thing. He looked at the bands he was booking and told them, right, you have to cancel this date and this date and this date out there that you have booked already.
No.
And yeah, or you don't play my places anymore.
Yeah, that's no.
I mean, for me, even if all the rest of it was workoutable, that crosses the line for me. That's
for them to demand that you screw up relationships with other groups just to start one or maintain one with them is no bueno. Yeah. Now we definitely have partnerships with certain venues that are not quote unquote exclusive, but if we are playing in a certain part of town, we are more than likely playing at those venues. Mm-hmm. But we've never been in a position where they're like, you can't play here. You have to play with us.
Right.
That's just, again, if you are a venue and you are going to make that kind of stance, you better be able to back it up and support those bands. Because otherwise, you're wasting your time. You're burning bridges unnecessarily. You are giving up influence.
There you go.
Whoa, call back.
Ooh, it all comes full circle.
I love it.
That's good.
Venue owners.
I
understand. I get it.
It makes me think about, if we musicians, if we cover bands could unionize in some way and just protect ourselves against this kind of thing.
Well, now we're going to have all the socialists emailing us. Can you just pick a side of the deal to stay on?
Look, I'm no.
It's fine.
No, I can't.
Now, I mean, union. Yeah. I mean, the problem with where most people are is that, there is a musicians union, but most people can't afford to join it because, most places, don't recognize it unless you're higher up in the echelon.
It's not for us. Yeah, for sure.
There's a barrier of entry. It's just like SAG or any of those other ones. Mm-hmm. AFTRA.
Right.
Good stuff.
Right.
Well,
that's what I need. That's what I got.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a good stopping point. We'll do a little shorter than we normally do. As always, thank you for your continued support. Share this with your friends and bandmates. Like, subscribe, and rate on the podcast platform of your choice. We are on all the major platforms, including Spotify. Mm-hmm. So thanks again for checking in, and we will call it for this week. From Atlanta, Georgia, this is Adam Johnson.
Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You've been listening to the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, episode 22. Have a good week.